Alright, good evening everyone. It's Monday, about 10:30, and I totally waited to the last minute to do this, but I am going to be doing the demonstration portion of the Apple of Our Eye lesson, focusing on the focused instruction part of the gradual release of responsibility that we've been reading about. So, before I begin, and because I've had to go through this a few times, my apple's already cut, but our whole apple here is going to represent Earth. Okay, this entire apple represents everything we know about Earth. And as we're going through this, I want us to sort of be thinking about what each proportion of this apple is going to represent as I'm cutting it. Okay. One of the main purposes of this lesson is to think about how our Earth is divided up and what each of these divisions sort of represents. Alright, we've been talking a lot about land, and dividing up this Earth is going to give us a better sense of just how precious that arable land is and how quickly it sort of dwindles down with everything else that we have to consider. So, having already got my apple partially cut here, we are going to proceed and say that 3/4 of this apple represents water. Okay, this can be oceans, lakes, streams, wetlands, you name it. Anything kind of water-based on our Earth is represented by 3/4. All right, 3/4 of our Earth represents water. All right, I'm going to set that aside. And 1/4 of our Earth represents land. Okay, this is any kind of land around us, countries, states, cities, you name it. Any kind of land is represented by this quarter of the Earth. All right. Now I'm going to take this quarter and cut it in half to give us 1/8. Alright, this 1/8 of the apple represents any uninhabitable land. Alright, and as the name sort of suggests, uninhabitable means land that we can't necessarily live on. Habit means a place that we live, or a habitat is a place where we live. But uninhabitable land can include, swamps, deserts, any kind of, rocky areas where we can't necessarily build or even have any kind of farmland on. Will be represented by this 1/8 of the apple. Next, I'm going to cut it into 30 seconds, into 4 equal pieces. Alright, this is 3 pieces, or 3 30 seconds, 3 over 32, represents habitable or non-arable land. This land is land that we've specifically set aside for other human purposes, like, it can be parks, or it can be just other things that humans have set aside for their own purposes, building different commercial structures and skyscrapers and things of that nature that could have the potential to be farmed upon, but we've chosen not to use it. Okay? This 1/32 of land, this very tiny piece of land right here, represents our arable land. Alright, this is land that we're actually able to farm upon. Now, if you think about a whole apple, you have a really, in comparison from this to a whole apple, this is very small, but this represents our arable land. This is land that people have decided to use for farming purposes, for raising crops and providing space for cattle to be used for other purposes related to human use. This is our arable land. Again, the key word there being arable, meaning we're able to farm upon it, as we've sort of learned in our discussion groups. Alright, and now I'm just going to split up this piece of skin from the apple. And this very, very minuscule piece right here represents our topsoil. Alright, that's a very, very tiny piece compared to, the whole entire skin of an apple. But this represents our topsoil, and it's very, very small. And we've already sort of learned about why this might be small through a key term. It begins with E and rhymes with corrosion. It's erosion. So a lot of that topsoil that we see, gets taken away by other means of erosion, whether it's runoff from water or if it's the wind blown or deforestation and other means that we've seen over the years cause a lot of our erosion to occur. So having seen all this apple cut up, we started with a whole apple and now we're left with just this one little piece here. Who can tell me what 1/32 of our apple represents? And why isn't this necessarily a larger number? What was the term we talked about prior to arable land that would make this a lot smaller of a proportion? Stay tuned.